Let's please give a round of applause and welcome to Reverend Tom Hafer.
Can I travel with this? Is it still morning? Good morning, everyone. How is everybody? Good. You know, this is probably one of, I first of all want to thank Joan for letting me speak to all of you again, as we did last year. And I get to travel and do quite a bit of speaking, and it's so wonderful to just go across the bridge and come over and instead of having to fly somewhere. But it made me think about what to talk about to you folks today, since we kind of went through the spiel last year. So I just thought maybe we could do something very different. I thought we could talk about the last 6 months. In the last 6 months of my life, I've traveled more than I ever have. And I just want to share inside of some of those stories of the places I've been and where I've found grace unfold in the most unusual places. And I hope you agree. I want to start, first of all, in the summer. About 6 months ago, I went to Baton Rouge, in the greater Baton Rouge area, right after the floods. You remember that time? It was worse than I thought. I got there and I was hoping going to give a couple days of relief and maybe some health and wellness, inspirational lectures to the group of 400 employees we have with Volunteers of America in the greater Baton Rouge area. And before I left there, their human resources director called and said, "Tom, it's worse than you think." See, about 25% of our 400 people have lost everything. And you've heard that when you lose things in the flood zone, that really you do lose everything. There's not checks to come back and rebuy those things. So it was pretty bad. And when I got there, the other 75% of the workforce were helping to house the people and helping to carry wet sofas to the curb and those kind of things, and making fresh coffee for the neighbors who were just destitute. And it was amazing, though, to see how that grace kind of shined through one simple reason, that there was a human need. And that human need, people wanted to be part of the solution. They wanted to be part of God's love story being told through the hearts and the hands of others. And just a couple weeks after that, I got to go to Asheville, North Carolina. Beautiful place, right? I went there, and there was an event that I got to do that was for 200 brand new retired Lutherans. And it was a big retreat, and it was a time where people got together and talked about what that next chapter of life's going to be all about. And it was interesting to be able to give an invocation of some kind, and then be able to have a breakout section and go to each table and get to know some of the people. I can tell you, some of the places people came from were big, important jobs, and now they're finding themselves with nothing to do. In one table I went to, there was a wonderful man who was in his late 60s, who was a VIP of some type, who came. I sat at his table, and he and his wife was just sitting about 2 feet behind him, and he was just telling me how he doesn't really know what to do with his time anymore. See, he was an important guy in his job, and now he doesn't have that job, and he finds himself watching a lot of television and getting more and more depressed and trying to figure out what this second half of life, what is God calling him to do. And it was interesting because just behind his wife was sitting there, and she's doing this. She's going, "He needs a job." But the interesting thing is I go to the next table, and there was a couple who were newly retired, and they always found God in creation. So they wanted to be by the mountains. They loved the Appalachian Trail. They loved to do all those hikes. So they moved in a small little place. They found a new church, and they instantly got involved in helping others. They became Meals on Wheels, meals delivery people. They helped in all the places that everyone here already knows brings joy to life by helping others. They wanted to be part of God's love story in the world with the work of their hands and their hearts. And I tell you, not long after that, I got to go to Boston. in Boston, there wasn't anything. The 2 days I was there, the events were fine. But what I wanted to tell you about was on the way home. And do people here, is there a lot of travelers here? Anybody take planes lately? Yeah? About half of you? Well, the other half haven't been on a plane in a while. It's kind of an ordeal now. And you know when you go through, even when you do traveling like you have to take off your shoes. You might have seen this on television. You have to take off your belt. You have to do everything, undo your pockets. You're almost standing there half naked. And then they're asking you to go through the x-ray, and you're pulling your pants up, and you're trying to get to the end of the line so other people don't run you over. It's a little frustrating. But in Boston, the last flight out of this terminal, we were a lot of us were running to get the plane because our event went late. And when we got to the terminal, the plane was a little late, and it was the last one out of the terminal. Now, you can picture this. You have about a 3-hour flight ahead of you, and it's getting to be about 9, 10 o'clock. And the thing about being on a late flight is all the little details that take 15 minutes all day, they kind of add up, and at the end, you're really late. What was interesting about this is when they call your zone, you jump up and you kind of muscle your way to the front. Now, what I've found in my travels is that the pilot will never leave until everybody's seated and strapped in, and so we really don't need to push to get forward when your zone's called. It's like, so I've learned to relax about that a little bit, but in this particular night, all of us were getting up, about 300 of us, who are trying to get on this little plane, and we're forcing our way in, and all the zones were called, and you could feel the frustrations, right? You could feel the anxieties in everybody that it's getting later and later, and people just want to get on. You know, they finally got their shoes on, their belts fastened and everything back in place, and they're trying to get on the plane, and you could feel the anxiety. There was pushing. But when we entered the fuselage, when we entered the plane itself, what happened was when you go into the plane, you kind of pass the first class, the front row. I've never sat there. I hear it's nice, though. But in the front row of this particular plane, as we're walking on, everybody's frustrated, kind of pushing through. There was a grandmother, a mother, and about an 8-year-old little girl. And the little girl had very, very thin hair. She was very pale. She was wearing a nasal cannula to get oxygen, you know, the nose piece there. She was wearing a mask to keep the germs off. She was part of organization to try to bring her to show her, like, give kids the world in Orlando, you know, to do something nice for her last wish, Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so everybody who was terribly anxious, who was getting on the plane, we all passed that scene. Like that, it changed. All the anxiety went away. We realized there was some deeper story being told. And sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. See, we all want to tell God's love story through our hands and hearts. We just need to allow ourselves to have eyes to see and ears to hear. Anybody believe that? All right, just making sure we're still on. The next thing we did, this is exciting. You know, this was a traveling last 6 months, and I told I would share everything I got to do, and the next place I went was just recently, went to Japan. Anybody been to Japan? It's something else. I've never been. The only reason my wife and I went is because my son, who's a U.S. Marine, has been stationed there for 2 years. And so we haven't had a chance to see him in 2 years. And so we were excited to go, and we probably would have never gone unless he was there. But if anybody has ever read any of my writing, you know that I talk a lot about a place called Okinawa. Okinawa, Japan, are the healthiest people on the planet. They are known through the blue zones to be the longest living 100-year-old people in the world. They have 5 times more centenarians than we have here at home. They have 1/5 the cardiac conditions we have. Less prostate cancer, less breast cancer, and no real good health care like we have, so to speak. And so you wonder what this is, and if you understand deeply, if you start peeling back the layers, you realize that these folks, the rural people of Okinawa, the Japanese who work the lands, not only do they eat right from the gardens, the fresh vegetables all the time, the fish, not only do they eat right and take a lot of bicycle rides and work the soil a lot, and so they move and exercise a lot. So they got both variables. We know that. They eat right, they exercise, but something that is very common in Okinawa is that third variable that you've heard of before if you've heard me speak or read anything that I've written, and that's when you're part of a community, when you're defining yourself inside a larger picture of people, you become healthier. You live, and now it's actually called something in the scientific research. They call it the village effect. There is such thing as a village effect where if you live inside a community that cares for each other and you care for it, if you care for a bigger picture your whole life, you can, on average, live an additional 14 years of disability-free living than somebody who is terribly isolated from society. On average. It almost seems too good to be true, but it is absolutely true. And people of Okinawa, Japan, certainly are living proof of that. And we were in Japan, and some of the things I'll just share with you briefly. Some of the things that I saw that my son pointed out is that he showed on the back of some of the cars, if you see a sticker that looks like a little almond, like a teardrop, and it has two different colors, he said that is a sticker that's put on each car when the driver is over 85 years old. And here's the rub. Here's the difference. Those people cannot be held liable for an accident. Isn't that great? In other words, the people of Okinawa, when they see that sticker, they respect and show reverence to that sticker and give them the, just like here. And you think about that, and you think about our situation where the traffic is not very, doesn't have a lot of patience for people who might have a little bit of reaction time. Or maybe don't see as well. But in Okinawa, Japan, they see that as reverence, and they pay reverence to that driver. So it's kind of funny when you see a car like that drive down, you just see everybody going around, and everybody's just out of their way because they know out of respect, out of reverence, that they give the space they need. And we saw this everywhere. We saw this when with first fast food, their version of fast food. When we pull in, it was about midnight Okinawa time. We're off the plane and we're starving. So our host family, who's a sergeant in the U.S. Army or U.S. Marines, he took us to what they call Coco's, which is actually a kind of a fast food place, but it's healthy fast food. And so we went in, and I'm doing my best in Japanese, which is domo arigato, which is thank you very much. And that helps a lot. The only other word I knew was shasu, something like that, and it means shirt. But that didn't help a lot. But when we're trying to communicate to say what's on the menu, what would you like to eat, and I'm doing my best Japanese with the two words I know, and he's doing his best English, this young kid who looks like he's about college age, and we're trying to communicate, and luckily we got everything on the menu, and he did a really good job of it. And we went back to the car, and he ran out with a big bag of food, and he put it in the window, and I've never seen this. He ran to the front of the car where the headlights are, and he bowed and said, "Domo arigato." Thank you very much. Now, I know we all go to Burger King and McDonald's. That doesn't happen. There's something about that mutual respect that where all boats rise with the tides. And so we experienced this for 10 days, and it was a beautiful thing. But I want to go one step further. Before all this traveling this last 6 months, I did something that is very special to our family, because my mother and my late mother and my father, who were original folks trying to build a school and a mission down in Haiti, part of a big team that did that. We've been part of this team in Haiti to go down and spend a week and do some mission work. Well, at the beginning of the summer, I got to go down with my daughters. For the first time, I brought my 2 daughters down with me, and we spent, with a medical team, we spent a week down there. This was before all this traveling, the beginning of the summer. And we went down to a little orphanage that is actually called Little Children of Jesus. That's the name of the orphanage. And I've never seen this before, but in part of the orphanage, there was a carefully sectioned off area. And it was an area where behind there, during the lunchtime, now I say it was a dining hall, but understand in Haitian terms, it was a big concrete room that was open air, that it was also their chapel, that was also their school, that was also, all the activities were done there, but at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it became the dining hall. And I watched as this little boy was right on the other side of this little fenced-off area. And I didn't know why he was on that side, but I did see him be placed on the floor, and I saw his meal be put in front of him. And now, forgive me, this might be a little hard to hear. It certainly was hard to watch. But this little boy, who was born with everything against him, who was abandoned in the poorest country of the Western Hemisphere, who was crippled, who had mental disability, who was confined to a wheelchair, also had a condition that maybe could be treated in the States, but certainly not in Haiti. It was a condition where he had to, in order to get any nutrition in, he would eat, and then he would bring it up again. And then he would have to eat it again. And I'm telling you, friends, and I don't say that to try to get any shock value, I want you to see this picture. This young, precious child who was struggling but happy as he was on this side and everybody was on this side. And in my mind, I had to think, God, where are you in this struggle? Where are you with this child who's crippled, who's abandoned, who's in a wheelchair, and who cannot keep his food down? Why is this? Where are you, God? I said in my subconscious, and then in the quiet that followed, it wasn't long until I heard God's still small voice said, "But Tom, don't you recognize me? I'm right in front of you. I'm on the floor." And then I saw, with the most amazing reverence I've ever seen, this Catholic priest who was part of the mission for the time being. He was down there. I saw him go in when he was done eating. I saw him clean that little boy from head to toe as if he was handling the communion elements themselves. He put him back in that chair. He took that little boy and he pushed him out to the circle where they were sitting around for their post-lunch sing-along. And the boy was smiling from ear to ear. And then I watched that priest go back into that room, and I saw him sterilize that floor. I saw him salt that floor, sterilize it again, scrape it. I saw him work on that floor for almost 45 minutes. So you could eat off that floor. And that's something he did for 45 minutes, 3 times a day. As long as that little boy had to eat the way he had, he was going to eat with great reverence. Friends, I'm telling you, when you see that with tears in your eyes, you realize that there's a deeper meaning to all the stuff we do. Amen? When you understand that value comes from our service that we give to others, that's where life gets its flavor. I think Ecclesiastes said it best. When you think about there's a time for everything and everything under heaven, and then at the end of that litany of times for it says very simply, the writer of Ecclesiastes says, I think God made everything beautiful in its time. And we don't know exactly what God is up to from beginning to end, but I do know one thing Ecclesiastes says. It says that there is nothing better for us to do than to eat, than to drink, and find satisfaction in our toil. For this is the gift from God. And as I look out across everyone here, everyone gathered, I think of what you do every day. You do it because you want to be part of God's love story being told through your hearts and your hands. God bless you for it. And I wish my prayer for all of Lee County and then all of the world is to see what you do and to get motivated by it, and be changed by it, so we don't waste time trying to entertain ourselves, but we serve each other, especially the less fortunate. Because when we do this, we entertain angels and don't even know it. Amen? So friends, bravo for what you do. Thank you so much for having me, and God bless you all.